All right, Gil, we're live. We are live. Agile evolution, adapting to two market realities. The reality for you folks is that we might have 5, 6, 7 sessions of this because we have a lot to talk about. There is a lot of change going on in the Agile space around use within corporations, around training, what people are looking for, if they're even looking for something. So we got, again, a ton to discuss. When you look at it from our perspectives, me from the training side of things, I'm able to see what companies are doing, what companies are asking for, where some of those challenges are across a wide swath of organizations in finance, insurance, banking, mortgage, retail. And then you have Gil here, who's an active practitioner. So Gil, where are you? Not we're not going to talk about anything, but where are you able to see things? What perspectives have you been digging around so you can tell them how you're gaining some of the info?
It's interesting. First of all, it's a very tough job market, especially for Agile professionals right now. And I was just floored, like, what is this? I was, recently in transition and started my own company and doing some consulting work. And I still know a lot of my friends who are looking for that next opportunity. And when I checked in with people who are, okay, where can the pain points, where can these people help companies and organizations with their, get rid of the pain? And I was floored that there was still a lot of misinformation out there of what Agile is and what it is not.
Mm-hmm.
It's one of the big things I see is people want to hire an Agile. They want to implement Agile, but they don't know how to necessarily implement it. They just hire a whole bunch of people, and then a year later, and this is what happened in the beginning of the pandemic. I saw it where a lot of organizations were hiring many people for an Agile specific roles, but they didn't have a strategy of what to do with them. It was interesting to see that, and sometimes a leader may not be directly involved in the transformation.
So Gil, what type of roles were they hiring for? So you got this. So before the pandemic, Agile's definitely still has some steam and interest.
Mm-hmm.
You have this business agility thing floating around and seeing if it's going to have a soft landing somewhere or a great landing somewhere. What were they hiring for before the pandemic? What type of titles?
There were a lot of Agile and still are. And we can get to that in a bit, but there was a lot of Scrum Master roles, a lot of product owner roles, a lot of Agile coach roles, enterprise Agile coach roles. But
what about the release train engineers? Were they specifically?
Oh, of course, yeah, I throw them in there too. That's a Scrum Master, that's in scaled Agile. Yes, a lot of release.
Is that kind of like the 5 hottest titles before the pandemic? Would you say?
Yeah, I would say in Agile, yes. That's what I would say.
So we like you said, we hired up. You saw that you were at Cap 1 during that time, I believe, right? And really, you were at the center of the storm because it was Cap 1 that was really Amazon and Google, but then it was Cap 1 at the more the enterprise side that began this layoff trend. So, what were you seeing during the pandemic at Cap 1 that started this thing to fall? Well, because you guys were the golden child out there for years.
That's a tricky, and Capital One is a great company. Just look, and it really still is.
Yeah, absolutely.
They have their own culture, and that's great, and they've been around for years. Now, one thing I was seeing at Capital One, and the same in other organizations, other companies, were hiring people. They were trying to transform, or they call it Agile transformation over years, but the underlying way of doing things never changed. And it was interesting. They kept hiring, and it's not Capital One only; it's many companies. There were a lot of people coming in, right? In Agile, Scrum, release train engineers, but then there was a bit of a budget crunch, and that was the easiest thing to get rid of because they weren't seeing in their eyes the transformation fruit, so to speak.
And what would be the fruit of your mind? What were they looking for? Or they didn't even know what they looked for, and since it was so esoteric, it was the easiest thing to cut.
More the latter, and I don't want to point fingers at any one company, but it's what I said earlier. Hiring people without a full strategy for how to have those people make a transformation and have it be empowered to do it. I was seeing it across the board, and a little bit in Capital One. I saw it in other companies too, through my colleagues saying the same thing. And so it became more, as you said, esoteric to when the budget cuts and
It's easy. It's
it was easy,
right?
Exactly.
That was my sense of it. So I think you could tell a great story, and the industry does tell a great story. And for 17, 18 years, the industry was telling an amazing story of why Agile works, the iterative nature. We had some great books written about it. We had examples on the DevOps side, like Project Phoenix. But, nobody really quantified the return on investment to a point that it could be registered. And some of the most senior and really skilled Agilists out there I started talking to as this layoff cycle began to happen was that they were trying to find ways to talk to finance better in their language, so they could maybe understand more about why this structure's in place. And I just think it was too little too late. And where's the first place to cut? It's going to be a place that you can't see or understand value. Now, the values could be there, but it's not tracked.
But if you're not seeing it, if you're not seeing anything tangible connecting back to the practices, it's fluff.
It's
bottom line. It's fluff.
And that's the saddest thing about it, because we can talk about faster software, faster to market, more engagement for the customers. So many great things we can talk about, but I think the Agile world thought more about the process than talking about the return.
And that was a big failure. Even today, there are a lot of Agilists that I speak with. They talk about they just get their certification here. They learn this process here, this methodology here. They love scaled Agile. They love less, that lean scrum of scrums, whatever. But it comes down to one thing. And people I've mentored, it comes down to one thing: keeping things simple. You are a company of one or a company of 500,000. You are doing the same thing. You are providing a product or a service to a customer, internal and external, but for a mutually agreed upon fee, and that translates to value.
That's right.
If you can't do the value, if you can't show how the value is being realized, it's gonna be knocked out of the water.
So I have a real interesting question for you, and you can process this and maybe come back to it later. You mentioned one thing. You said that there are still transformations going on, and how are they justifying it? What do you see in this the justification process for that type of transformation, given, if you looked into the marketplace, you looked at difficulty of getting jobs, that type of thing, you might question why to do that. What's going on, you think?
Why the transformation is still going on in industry?
Yeah.
Well, that's because Agile, a lot of people, you see it on LinkedIn, you see it on a lot of reports, like in the past year, Agile is dead. Agile is not dead. It's not even close to dead.
Okay, so let's talk about. All right. So you're, as we kick off more of these discussions, you put it right there on the line. Agile's not dead, according to Gil Pisano.
Oh, yeah, it's just me.
That's right. It's okay, though, because you got a lot to say, and you should say it.
Yeah, because
now I would tell you it's dying. What would you say?
If you don't do anything, it will die. If you don't do anything, I believe.
Okay. All right, but it's not dead.
It's not dead, no.
Okay, so when you walk into that, when you see some of these transformations happening, what are they how are they getting to be able to do that? Are they laying other people off and saying we're going to operate this way? Are they saying they're going to get value from X, Y, and Z? What's going on?
Well, from my little corner of the world what I'm seeing from colleagues and companies that are in the middle of a transformation and have actually successfully transformed and are still doing, part of a transformation is understanding you're continuously growing. It's not like a project where, according to PMI, a project has a beginning and an end. Mm-hmm. It's more of a product and a service. It's continuously growing. You're a lifelong. The organization is an entity in itself, and you're growing and getting better. So, that said, Agile is not an IT only endeavor, which is what which is what kind of shot a lot of companies in the foot when it came to agile transformation. They thought it's an IT only. And it's like no, and it's kind of funny. You hear CEOs saying in their meetings, for example, hey, we are not a banking company. We are not a healthcare company. We're an IT company that does this, and that.
Oh, absolutely.
But they don't take that same attitude when it comes to agility principles. They pro agile. I'm not identifying any particular company, but
No.
it's an example that there are some people that just mistakenly think agile is an IT only thing, and it's not. So if you're saying we're this kind of a company, that's metaphorically speaking, take a look. That means IT and everything involving IT is involved throughout your whole company.
Yeah,
so
in a lot
agile
of cases,
should be the same way.
Without a doubt, some of the most data-oriented, large, what we call B2C service companies, your health insurance companies, your banks, your mortgage, your finance, are more and more IT companies, basically, with some salespeople that know the industry. And what caused that? So I agree with you, Hill. Without a doubt, you couldn't sell an agile leadership class if you offer free beer. Scrum Alliance came out with their CAL certification. I don't know, 5 people. I'm only being facetious. I'm sure there's more than that, but certainly not enough to cause any type of push into the marketplace to cause a tipping point. Why didn't it happen? Do you have any thoughts?
Repeat that. So why
didn't business agility happen? Why didn't the spread of agile get deeper into the business side of things?
I think, well, let me answer it in 2 parts. One, I believe business agility is still happening. It's still growing. That said, it's ongoing because they are the ones who are taking advantage of the principles, not the methods, but the principles from the Agile Manifesto, delivering value, and now it's business value, can learn a lot from that. And they're realizing there's value when you can deliver something to an end customer within, let's say, 2 weeks that they can tangibly look at and say, oh, that's what we wanted. Oh, minimal viable product within 2 weeks versus 3 to 6 months before they even see anything.
But guess what? They're going to have to show that metric all the time now. It's one thing to say it. You got to say, okay, typically this project would have taken this amount of time, but it took this amount of time and we had less rework, and that less rework saved this amount of money. Where it's always ties to, and this is where I think the confusion is, savings in the project environment ties to FTEs or consultants. It's about people. If you could do more with less people, that's where the value becomes. And I think Agile's got to figure that out. So as we start talking about Agile 2.0 or Agile and efficiency is some of the stuff I'm hearing right now, it's how do you take a team that operated with 7 people using Agile principles and using the technologies and some of the business agility stuff, turn that into a 4-person team that is even more productive?
And you hit the nail on the head right there. The value, there's nothing saying that a company, and I'm being realistic here, nothing says a company must maintain a certain number of people. Now, if they can do the same level of output, production, services with less people, it makes business sense to do that.
They have to. That's profit. That's basically
exactly. Now, if they can increase the productivity, if they can do more and deliver more products with the same people, there's a
you can deliver, but that's so. Here's a skinny on that one. So my think what happened was, in their minds, they didn't see the correlation of new products to the agile staffing. That's the core. So instead of, since I didn't see that correlation, now it's an efficiency, productivity, cost thing. I could get the same stuff done without these people, so it's going to get gone. Because you hit the, so from my perspective, the missing link was how much more product did get out, and what was the increased revenue from the time that you would have had to wait till you could have used it. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah. Increased revenue and increased revenue / cost. You have to see how does that translate into value. 2 different things. Value is the bottom line. If a company is providing a product or a service for $100, for example, and they're finding out through
AI.
AI. You brought it up. I love AI. Through somehow communication with their customers and potential new customers, the customer, I've seen products that are $100 and they will charge $400 and they got it because the customers saw that much value in what they were getting. So it's a perception value, where cost and revenue is obviously financial, very direct. Value there's a lot more perception and value in there. So that's something that we could talk further down the road about that. But I believe, to your point, Agilists need to enhance and keep learning new skills that transformed all their Agile knowledge into the next level. All that experience of Agile, of all the processes, the value is still there. You still got it. Now take that, and how can you help the company provide more value?
Yeah, there you already starting to talk. So what we're the first of many series. This series really wanted to talk about, and we have been evaluating the impact. So we talked about what was going on with the inflation effect. So before the pandemic, and even with the pandemic, you saw a little bit of this inflation thing we talked about. Hiring by role, by title, just put the people in there, inflate, because it's good to work this way. What happened was that inflation most likely caused certain level people to take a second look at the costs. And when they took a second look at the costs, what they might do is percentage of revenue of headcount. So a lot of companies will look at, okay, what's my revenue percentage per headcount? I do that a lot when I own businesses. And if they see revenue per headcount, then they might break it out by department. And if they see this IT department that was usually running at 15%, and now it's running at 20%, and my revenue hasn't increased at that level, then there's questions, right?
Yes.
And that's what we're talking about. So really the impact of Agile isn't necessarily that Agile's dead or even dying. It's that it didn't prove its value based on the initial amount of headcount that was added during the inflation period of 2017, 18, and then into mid-19. Thoughts on that?
Yeah, it's kind of in providing value, and I always got to think, why didn't it? That's my first question. Why didn't it provide value?
Revenue growth. Revenue growth.
Yeah.
Because you're going to added headcount. So here's the thing. Ultimately you have a bunch of programmers working together, maybe an analyst, maybe a project manager, and they fumble around and roll stuff out. And you're making revenue. You move to Agile, you have to add headcount to do that, to run the teams. You have a more productive, efficient team. Supposedly you're going to make more product that's going to increase revenue. But if it doesn't, for whatever reason, then I got more headcount, same revenue. Yep. Doesn't matter if it's controlling attrition or better quality. It becomes that marker.
Yeah, and that's a very solid question that any business owner needs to ask and take care of immediately.
Or a CEO of a company that has a bunch of stock. What do you call it?
Make their stock.
Fiduciary responsibility to the shareholders.
It's very important. We're talking about Agilists here, and everyone involved with the Agile processes in order to create value.
That's right.
Regardless of the method, okay? But one skill that from the brand new Scrum Master to a seasoned release train engineer and enterprise Agile coach needs to be able to do is translate what they're doing and the results they're getting or not getting into numbers.
Yes.
They need to be, and that's a very simple. It's not It's not simple, but it is easy.
And here's why. Think about it.
Yeah.
Sales is never going to go away.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry. It might, it's going to adjust in the lead process with regard to the way people buy, and they don't have to prospect as much because they're prospecting on the web. But guess what? I, as a salesperson, can tell you what my value is right now. It's based on the number of bookings I've got. There's a number. That's why sales will stay. The problem with marketing has always been they can't relate the spend directly back to what they do. And that's why marketing is always ebbed and flowed based on the mindset and the belief of the company itself. And I think Agile's in the same world now that marketing was in. Now it becomes a belief thing because it never really was able to tangibly show results. So you have to have a company that actually believes that's the right way to work right now to do a transformation.
Yeah, one looking at metrics, that's the key. It's the simplest thing to do. One of the things that always sticks out to me, just looking at metrics, keeping things simple. One Scrum team, and then a train. One metric, predictability factor. You promise 10 things. Each one has a value of what. Let's keeping it simple. It took you these 10 items, equal value, keeping it simple, and you promise it in 4 weeks. 4 weeks comes and goes. You deliver 3 of them, not all 10. That's a predictability factor of 30%. Okay.
Yep.
You keep doing that 2 or 3 months in a row, over and over, 30%. Now, if in the same time period you start going from 30%, you'd start delivering 7 things. The quality is still there. The quality did not go down. Technical debt is not introduced. But the predictability, now the customer is able to see twice 70% of everything they promised. I mean, that's what they promised. I'm just giving an example. And
keep going.
Right there. How much? If they're all full-time employees, you're paying them by our consultant. You're paying them a certain amount of money every month. This is the cost. It's what it's costing you to deliver 3 out of 10 items. Now you're delivering 7 out of 10 items for the same cost. That's a tangible return.
You can show that.
You can show that. That's a very simple one.
It's a good one to say. So if our revenues are not growing based on new product, you can show that at least the work that you're doing is more productive.
Very simple.
Now, one of the interesting things I wondered why companies never did this was have competing processes going on within an organization to verify which process might be more effective given the current time period or the current structure of the company. Have you ever seen that happening?
Yes, I've seen that happening when I was in the healthcare area. They were piloting they call it Scrum of Scrums, RUP, and Scaled Agile. But they piloted it in 2 small organizations just to see what happened. And it was fascinating because I came to learn about it halfway through. And when the leaders of the organization announced we're going with Scaled Agile, but why? But they said they tried 2 different functions. They both learned. They learned from both types of methods. It's just that in one method they were able to deliver the same amount, but it was 5% less defects than the other method. It was that's how a threshold. Okay, but they tried it in small amounts. They tried different things, and they were transparent about it. So it was interesting that's a very small example in a large healthcare company that I was in, but I've witnessed that myself.
So here's one of the things that Greg just asked a great question, and I'm responding to him via chat. Great. So this is a very interesting comment. And so I said to him, yeah, this is one thought experiment. But then the other side of this is a pure Agilist might say it shows the success of Agile. Because those that are really hands-on in the production are Agilists, so they don't need the orchestration roles to be Agile. So Agile actually worked. What are your thoughts when someone says that?
I love it because one of the first things, when I first started being a Scrum Master, I was honest with myself. The purpose of a Scrum Master, even at the time, even today, is to work your way out of a job, basically. You're helping them out, you're leading, and you want to help people as a coach, especially.
All right, so this is tough. I'm going to interrupt you, though, because this is a tough question. There's probably 200,000 people on the street that have gotten laid off in the last 2.5 years. That's the totality, not ones that found the job.
Yeah.
Why do you go to an industry that basically you're going to have to constantly find other companies to work for because you work yourself out of a job?
Because with any coach, in my opinion, you are preparing them, you're empowering them to be the best they can be. Now, as a coach, a Scrum Master is a coach, and today, I think a Scrum Master, for example, and many of these Agile, me included, can shift, taking those principles and learn additional skills and help lead, not by driving necessarily, but being a leader in different ways. As an example of what you can do, help being part of a team to upskill yourself and upskill themselves as well. You mentioned AI. AI right now, I think Microsoft report from last week said 7% of all people in the workforce use AI in the
All right,
workforce.
Greg, I'm going to tell you today. I had
Yeah.
to do a presentation. I forgot how to do it. I came in, I did it. I've developed it in 1 hour, actually 45 minutes using AI. And I had like 10 images, and each of those images would have taken back and forth with the designer at least an hour. I mean, seriously, it was 8 hours of work condensed down to 45 minutes. I knew what I wanted to talk about. I knew how to talk about it. I just needed the thing to get the stuff in a structure that could tell the story. Wild, isn't it?
That is amazing.
It's amazing.
That is amazing.
So, and I think about this is that, if we say that an Agile is in the new evolution of Agile is that we want to teach for then the production teams to be successful. The question is, what does a good operating Agile production team look like in efficiency? You get what I mean by that?
Yeah.
Constant
continuous improvement.
What
is key right there for
and
that.
Tools, and then how do you improve not only the specific work you do, but your agility?
Exactly.
All right, so we got this 200,000 people. So basically, what we have to do is teach them how to find jobs better, so that they can rotate into the companies that are transforming. Yeah.
Yes.
Maybe.
Yeah. Yes.
And you're building that muscle. You're building that muscle, and you have been building that muscle.
And I think and going back to one thing, saying Agile is dead. One thing I wanted to say, it's funny. A couple of years ago, there was the big resignation. Remember that? Everyone was like, yes. Back and forth. Now it's the big sit-in. But why? It's the big sit-in right now. People don't want to leave a job until they find another job or have it lined up.
Yeah.
But what's funny is that all these, even in the Agile world, there's a lot of Agile full-time workers, and they're still there. They're full-time, and they're talking to me about pilot groups, Agile transformations here and there. They're doing it now. So much so, PMI, the PMP. PMP originally was, anti-Agile, like 10 years ago, whatever. Today, the PMP is 1/3 of the PMP is solid Agile, Scrum, scaled Agile.
Well, the thing I love about who won, but when you look at the world of frameworks, PMI won because it started changing itself to be agnostic. It's really, you want to join the PMI chapter because you realize, ultimately, I might have to learn how to use DAD. I might have to learn how to use LESS. I might have to learn how to use Scrum. I might have to learn how to use Lean. And that environment is basically opened its doors to all of that. And by the way, if you want to take your PMP bootcamp, at least it's a foundation into how a project works. Like I always say, it's like you take your PMP bootcamp so you can know DOS. Because if you knew DOS, you could work all the way up through Windows NT. Like you actually know how a computer, and then Windows, you knew how a computer worked, right? If you get your PMP, you knew how, that the basis of what this all was built off of. Theoretically, I don't know if it's right or wrong, but that's one of the things. Like I became good at understanding networking technology because I had a cable facility in multiple times. And I really learned that physical plant stuff, and it really helped me understand how everything was working. But long story short, there is an opportunity here for Agile and efficiency. And we're going to definitely talk more about that for sure in our coming sessions. And there is an opportunity for Agilists to understand that they're going to have to build a muscle around moving around. Thoughts on that?
No, I'm just looking at. Didn't know if we had any comments or questions, but
nothing. Okay. No other comments or questions at this point. But any added thoughts that those 2 points? So what we ultimately wanted to talk about was the change, which you did, pre and post, and then the inflation, which we did. Now we have to dig into much deeper context as we go through this idea of the new market realities and we threw out the fact that we could probably have some conversations around AI in the team. And there are some conversations in very, very well-known and very well-respected Agile communities talking about what this new development team might look like. And then, this idea of business agility a little bit more we got to dig into. So I look forward to having those continued conversations with you, Gil. This has been fantastic.
Yeah, no, thank you for having me. This is a great conversation.
No problem. And this will be recorded up for other folks to see. Don't hesitate to reach out to myself or Gil. Gil, if you wanted to, do you have chat there? If you want to post your email address or post your LinkedIn page, can you see that?
Yeah, it's just Gil Pisano, all one word, Gil Pisano, and LinkedIn. So.
Oh, wait, I'll do it this way. And then you can find you. That's right. You're probably the only Gil Pisano in LinkedIn.
No, I'm the first.
Oh, yeah?
I
think I'm the only David Mantica in LinkedIn. I'm not BSing you.
Yeah.
I'm going to go double check it again. Anyways, it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much. And I hope we continue to have our conversations together.
Okay. Thank you.